selfish, entitled princess!
Selfish? I've been stuck being perfect my whole entire life.
Hello, welcome to my humble internet video, in a sea of videos about Disney's latest animated hit, Encanto. It's probably a testament to the universal appeal of this film that I've actually seen very little in the way of online discourse around the content of Encanto. That is, with the exception of Isabela's character. Before we dive into the video properly, if you do enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment and remember to subscribe. I have a few other video essays up on different pieces of media, and who knows, this may not be my only Encanto video. Anyway, back to the internet's favourite pastime, discourse about fictional characters. I saw some chatter around Encanto merchandise sales, with Luisa apparently outselling her more traditionally beautiful sister, who isn't resonating with audiences in the same way. I haven't actually seen much of this substantiated, but it rubbed me the wrong way every time it ended up on my feed. Not because I don't think that Luisa isn't a fabulous character deserving of attention. After all, I'm the middle sister in my family and not traditionally feminine either, so she's certainly someone I can relate to, and surface pressure is a bop. What I didn't like was how this discourse implied some kind of popularity contest between the sisters, pitting them against each other, which was really the opposite message intended for audiences after the credits rolled in Encanto. One of Encanto's strongest themes was repairing the rifts between family, even those that may not seem immediately obvious or are hidden below the surface. And some of the more obvious ones. Apparently, I feel passionate enough about this subject to make a video analysing Isabela's character, so without further ado, let's do that. One of the reasons that I think people are super quick to judge Isabela's character is that for most of Act 1 and 2 of Encanto, basically until we reach What Else Can I Do, she's extremely abrasive and difficult to stomach, especially in how she speaks to and treats her younger sister Mirabel. Mirabel is the lens through which the audience understands the world and the family madrigal. She's our central protagonist, who we go on this emotional journey with. The result of this is that Isabela's prickly behaviour is very much what is emphasised to the audience for the bulk of Encanto's runtime. This is by design, with most of Isabela's underlying characterisation very subtle, especially on a first watch. Fun fact, I was suffering pretty bad from the side effects of my COVID booster the first time I watched this, so I missed a lot of this myself in my feverish state. Appreciating this subtle characterisation comes much easier on a second watch, or several rewatches. Preferably without a fever. There are several scenes sprinkled throughout Acts 1 and 2 that hint at much more depth and struggle to Isabela than a surface level glance. First of all, how she is introduced to the audience.
Perfect in every way. Grows a flower, the town goes wild. She's a perfect golden child.
The word perfect is used in reference to Isabela so many damn times that I quickly lost count. However, not once does Isabela use this word to describe herself. Everyone in the village expects perfection from her at all times. Perfect looks, perfect behaviour, the perfect girl. That is a lot of pressure to put on any one person, never mind having it repeated to you by everyone in your family and everyone in your village. What is Isabela's worth if she isn't perfect? All of the Madrigal kids have versions of this pressure upon them, measuring their worth by their magical powers above all else. We see this pressure manifest in Luisa in her insane work ethic. Luisa works herself to the bone in physically assisting her family in the village. Basically, she's the kind of employee that Jeffrey Bezos would crave. Luisa keeps herself busy to the point of obsession, never allowing herself a moment's peace. Never stopping long enough to let those thoughts of failure and anxiety creep to the surface. It's obviously not a very healthy way of dealing with what is not a very healthy family dynamic to begin with. Isabela's way of dealing with this immense pressure is perhaps a little less obvious than Luisa's, but it's just as unhealthy. She crafts a persona of perfection to hide behind, a front for her family and for the village concealed below pleasant smiles and beautiful flowers. The real Isabela is suffocating and miserable below the surface. We see this perfect princess persona crack a few times during Act 1 and 2. During the breakfast scene, the family gets to talking about Isabela's upcoming engagement, with noticeably very little input from Isabela herself. Cousin Dolores, being the overly perceptive girl boss that she is, drops the bomb that Isabella's future husbando wants to add quite a few little additions to the family madrigal. As a result, we see one of the first true expressions of emotion from Isabela, and that emotion is discomfort. Her powers flare out of control for a second, a little foreshadowing of what's to come, although with less broken bones. Isabela grows 5 flowers on her head, 4 pink and 1 white. Not symmetrical and definitely not perfect. Except no one acknowledges this because of how quickly Isabela's facade of pleasant smiles returns. Everyone except Abuela, who plucks the imperfect flower away as though it never existed, reinforcing the notion that anything but perfection from Isabela isn't worth the time of day. And now we're going to do the classic thing of talking about the "we don't talk about Bruno" scene. There's barely a moment where a lyric from this song isn't living rent-free in my head. The song has a huge vocal cast involving most of our key characters, including Isabela, but it wouldn't be all that surprising if you missed some of her revealing lines in this scene. Firstly, we hear Isabela sing about how Bruno prophesied her eventually living the life of her dreams and her powers growing in tandem. She sounds quietly hopeful and happy at the prospect.
He told me that the life of my dreams would be promised and someday be mine.
This prediction is pretty spot on, but at this time in the film, Isabela living the life of her dreams seems to imply her living the way she basically is now, just with a loving husband and children. Unfortunately, the life of Isabela's dreams definitely isn't her current reality at this stage in the story, so it makes sense that she would be hopeful things could eventually change for the better. A life where her powers were not stifled by the need for perfection, and where she didn't always have to make sacrifices to please her family. There's also a later section in this song where all of the cast's vocals overlay in a chaotic and equally pleasing manner. Isabela's voice is in this mix somewhere, but you'd have a hard time hearing her over everyone else. What she actually sings is pretty revealing. She repeats the words, I'm fine," over and over again, almost as if she is trying to convince herself of this, and that this is the life of her dreams. This is made even more interesting by the fact that Isabela's distress is totally drowned out by the vocals from the rest of the cast. Isabela's unhappiness is so deeply buried below the surface that none of her family can even perceive it. That is except, of course, for one particularly determined younger sister. Let me start this section out by saying I really don't condone the way that Isabela treated Mirabel in most of these scenes. However, I think it's worth exploring why I think Isabela seemed to lash out at Mirabel in particular out of all her siblings and cousins. Many of the Madrigal kids have an unhealthy way of coping with the pressures put upon them, and an unhealthy perspective of their powers. This is fueled by Abuela tying her family's personal worth to those magical gifts. For the most part, Isabela copes by hiding behind her perfect smile. Her frustration at having most of her life dictated by suffocating expectations bursts out at points, around Mirabel particularly. And yes, there are times that this happens as a result of Mirabel seemingly making a mess of something important to Isabela, or at least important in how she looks in front of the rest of the family and the village. The reason I think Mirabel in particular is the subject of Isabela's frustrations is actually jealousy. From Isabela's perspective, Mirabel doesn't have any magic, she isn't defined by her gift, and isn't burdened by the weight of expectations the rest of her family endure. She doesn't need to be perfect. In many ways, she's free to live how she pleases and make mistakes that will often be overlooked. Mirabel isn't in the spotlight the way Isabela is. Of course, when we view this from Mirabel's perspective, we understand that actually, Mirabel's lack of an arcane gift is very much how she is defined, certainly by Abuela. Mirabel being somewhat of an outsider to her family, able to see how suffocating and false all of this is, allows her to reach her sister in a way that no one else can. That's why it's so lovely that Mirabel is the one to essentially break Isabela out of this box of perfection, riling up her emotions to the point that the truth slips out, along with a not-so-perfect plan to embody this sudden emotional release. Mirabel finally shatters the facade her older sister had held for so many years. She's the only member of the family that truly allows and actively encourages Isabela to be her true self, even if that's not perfect, so long as she's happy and true. I hope you enjoyed this little video about Isabela. I absolutely adored Encanto as a whole, but it was fun to focus on a specific part of the story. I don't know if we'll ever get a sequel, but this is Disney, and Encanto has performed very well commercially and critically for them, so it's probably on the cards at some point. If we do get a sequel, I could totally see Isabela running a flower shop with different streaks of colour in her hair over and over again, probably with some Taylor Swift vinyls playing in the background as she finally allows herself to get to know, well, herself. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you would like another Encanto video from me. Until next time, thank you for watching.